Okay, we are live.
Okay, so Tyler, you're the team leader, so you would be just making sure that we stay on track, and then cutoff time is about 45 minutes, and then over discussion, and then we'll go ahead and use that the remaining 15 minutes for me to read over the notes that I took during our discussion, because I'll be the scribe. And I was actually suggesting all of you the Google document. I see a lot of noise in that. There's a lot of noise in that. Okay. Do you guys hear that too? There's like background.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Can we also start out by introducing ourselves, just so the teacher knows who's on?
Yeah.
That's what I've done in previous meetings before.
That makes sense. So, you want to start?
I'll start. My name is Summer Hooper. And whoever else.
And I'm Christine Andreopoulos.
I'm Joe. And I'm Roxy.
And Tyler, did you want to say your name? I can't hear you. Okay. Okay. So I'm just going to point out some of the similarities. So we're just supposed to point out similarities that we see between the reading, like compare the reading to the actual therapy session. And I wrote some notes on it, some things that I saw. So I guess I can read it. Like it's pretty, like I wrote a lot. So let's just see if I can get through it all.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
And Christine, maybe if you want to go over one bullet point and then we can all talk about it maybe, or just so we can all kind of give our input on each thing, or I don't know. Or if you want to just read it all, I just thought we could all.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, like, whatever. I'm just trying to make it big, so, okay. So, one thing that I saw is that I can't get this, okay. So on page 14 of the reading, it says that, a language, I'll read the, what is it? Okay, so in short, like just to summarize everything that the therapist did, I think that the therapist provided, sorry, this document isn't coming up. I'm just going to find it on Microsoft Word. So if anyone wants to go ahead, I can do that while I find my list.
Okay. I'm also trying to pull up my information as well.
Because I wrote notes. I actually read the transcript of the video, and I wrote notes on the transcript, but for whatever reason, it's not opening up like fully, so like it cuts a lot off.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see it on here. Okay, that's fine. So. Okay.
So whoever's not talking can maybe mute their microphone because there's a lot of background noise.
That's not me.
Yeah, I don't think it's me either. Okay, that's. So Christine, were you going to talk, or if not, I can? Or, okay.
Okay, so the therapist used a lot of resilience-based intervention. The following quote from Walsh summarizes the tools that the therapist used in helping the family, and it's on page 7. Just go to my reading to pull that quote up. I wrote it on the post-it, but then the whole post-it's like cutting off, so that's why I'm going to go back to the reading. Okay, so it says that on page 7 of the chapter 6 practice principles and guidelines, it says that that a therapist uses meaning and mastery of the crisis provides reorganization of the familial structural patterns and development of effective communication and problem-solving strategies. So, like, the shortest thing I can say, instead of like reading everything that I have, is like that's exactly what the therapist did. He used a lot of the principles as found on page 5 of chapter 6, and also on page 133. So, like, belief systems, as an example, he used sense of coherence, where the crisis was, he made it into a manageable challenge. He used positive outlook, and he focused on the strengths and the potential of each individual person, and he provided courage and encouragement. And then he, for transcendence and spirituality, he there was like a lot of transformation because there was learning and growth from adversity. But one like big thing that he did was the organizational patterns with flexibility, connectness, clarity, and collaborative problem solving and emotional expression. For instance, as an example, like he used pleasurable interaction, so he used a lot of humor, and he was very clear and consistent with the messages that he was receiving. So basically, he would continually clarify, and it says clarification of ambiguous situation, truth-seeking, and truth-speaking. So what he did was he continually assessed the situation. He continually asked questions for each family member and each person in the group. And as he did that, he would state what he was able to understand from the situation. And as he stated that, he asked him if that was correct, and then he kept adding more and more to it until he got more information. So it was like clear, and he clarified ambiguous statements and feelings to make it as clear as possible and as understandable as possible. To get everyone on the same page and understanding each other. And in the end, like they came together with brainstorming and conflict resolution and focusing on goals and like knowing what concrete steps to take. Like an example was when the father asked the wife on a date. The therapist suggested it. The father agreed, and then they actually made concrete steps in having a set date and where they would be going. So they focused on like building family relations.
Okay. Are you done?
Well, I'll add more later, but I don't want to talk the whole time. So.
Okay. I just wanted to mention kind of what you already said, but on page 9 it talks about it is crucial to explore the meanings a crisis holds for a family and to be careful not to make assumptions based on your own experience or concerns. Questions such as what stood out for you about both the situation and the family's response to it. Acknowledge the unique experience of each family. And I noticed as I watched it, he was very good about that. He asked each, kind of like what you're saying, Christine, about asking a lot of questions, and he was very mindful of each individual and how they had different experiences and different feelings on the same crisis. He didn't assume anything. He didn't judge them. And he was just very good about understanding them and listening to each one of them individually and what they had to say. And then to go back on that, he also, I thought, had a lot of great questions. Because to me, the family, like, and it's hard, I would think, to go to a therapy session anyways, but they weren't very reciprocative, if I'm saying that right, initially, and so he had to kind of get a lot out of them, and I thought he did a really good job with asking them questions, and like you said, Christine, including humor in that as well, and just trying to make it a comfortable environment for them. And by doing so, he didn't create any of his own conclusions, but he was also, when they were done speaking, he would summarize what they said to make sure that he was on the same page as them, which I thought was also very good, just to continually make sure that you're understanding what your clients are saying to you and not trying to assume something differently or put in your own experiences and bias about it. So I thought he just did a very good job of, trying to listen and hear what they had to say about their situation and what to do regarding that. So I have other stuff, but I can say that later as well. So if anyone else wants to go.
Someone else can go, and then I can go after. I guess I'll go. So something that, can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. So something from chapter 6, it talks about collaboration and teamwork, and it says a family resilience approach emphasizes the value of collaborative efforts in surmounting life challenges. In crisis, mutual support is most likely to break down as members hunker down in isolated, self-reliant modes of coping or in adversarial positions. When we encourage empathetic communication and shared problem-solving among family members, we strengthen relationships as problems are tackled together. And that's on page 28 through 29 of the Family Resilience, Chapter 6. And I can put that on the Google Doc too, but something else I was reading in the transcript of, I think it's on the transcript, actually I think it's chapter 6, they're talking about like successful ways that family members can get along and can share, and like there's awesome little ideas like crediting positive intentions, praising efforts and achievements, and I think it kind of goes back to what we've been talking about this whole semester of like positive thinking. And now, I mean, I feel like the whole semester we've been talking about like ourselves and like positive thinking in our own minds, and now this chapter is kind of branching out and saying, okay, can we share that positive thinking with like our family members, and can we share with our friends, and how can we start focusing on other people as a unit and incorporating those positive thoughts. So I hope that makes sense. And I'll share that quote, and then I'll also put it on the Google Doc.
And
someone else can go.
One thing from the transcript, not the transcript, actually, the Practice Principles and Guidelines, Chapter 6, and this is on page 14, under the heading Useful, Respectful Language and Constructs. It says, effective intervention requires learning the language and perspective of each family in order to see problems through the member's eyes, to understand the values and expectations that influence their approach to handling the problem or their inability to change. So this goes along with what Summer said when Summer was talking about how the therapist really sought to understand the perspective of each family member. He didn't just add his own judgments and his own feelings to it. He helped the family members through assessment, and through asking the questions and whatnot, figure out what they were feeling, and he really saw the problem through the member's eyes and not just through his own eyes. And that goes along with what therapists are to do, according to this.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that.
Mm-hmm. I have another point. Tyler, sorry.
You're good.
No, you can go ahead because I've already gone.
I did notice a part where he mentioned about faith and spirituality stuff. I don't really remember what he was talking about, but it did stand out a little bit that he would mention it. But most of what I noticed was him pointing out to everybody's various needs, the differences that they had, and the way they were reacting to the same situation in different directions. He was just very good about connecting everybody and getting everything that they were feeling out and understood.
Thank you. So I had another thought on it's at the end of page 12, and it talks about normalizing family distress. And it says, a normalizing orientation heightens our appreciation of each family's unique set of experiences and beliefs, as well as its commonalities with other families in similar life circumstances. And I think it's easy as family members and as individuals to sometimes feel that our crisis is unique and that no one can understand how we feel, or at least I know I felt that way. And I liked how he did towards the end tell them this is totally normal. He even said that his family, you know, they're not perfect either, and even just the yelling is totally normal thing. And I appreciated that he brought that up because, for one, like the mother said, that they all felt nervous to come because it's not something that you necessarily want to admit to, that you need help and you need to go to a professional. But two, to know that they're not the only ones that are in that situation. They have commonalities with other families, as well as their experiences are unique, and each family requires maybe a unique solution to their problems, and every family is different. So anyway, I just appreciated that he talked about that this is totally normal and that other families face this exact thing. And yeah, that was mentioned on page 12.
Right? At least it does for me.
What was that?
Oh, sorry. Is anyone speaking? You just type if you don't want you to say something. Was anyone else going to go right now? I don't know. Okay, I'll share really quick. So there's a part in the video transcription, and this is right after the father invited the husband invited the wife to go to the restaurant on Thursday, and the therapist again involves humor, and he says that and this is a quote from the therapist, he says, "I mean, here in a funny way, you guys are at a stage of life where you're getting ready for your son to move on." And they talk about transitional events, and their reading talked about transitional events as well, and helping families cope with change, and not only cope with loss, but cope with transitional events that happen in the family. So that's one comparison that that I saw. And then just the fact, and we also talked about this, about how the therapist asks a lot of questions, and his asking questions can be deemed as an assessment. And on page 8 of chapter 6, it says, assessment involves a series of questions to assess both risk and protective factors. And so that's exactly what the therapist was doing. And there's another quote I'm trying to find because I actually have it highlighted, but I'll just summarize it before I find the quote. But it talks about how there are irrational fears and anxieties, and it's the therapist's responsibility to make sure that these fears are coped with, and they're kind of, where is it? Okay, it's hard to look. Okay, so basically the mother expressed in the video that she's scared that her son Jimmy might be dead, that maybe one day she'll get a call that her son is dead. And so she has this fear, and it's a very huge fear that could be categorized as almost unrealistic. That's not the right word, but I'll find the quotes and then I'll make more sense. But basically, the therapist, after asking questions, after doing the assessment and talking about the feelings, he's able to calm her down and understand the avoid that fear. Yeah. So basically, to avoid that fear. Sorry. I'm jumbled on tongue side, I'm sorry. I'm trying to find it. I'll find it and I'll share it, so that's that.
Okay.
And I don't know if you guys...
I'll share something. Okay. Oh, sorry.
No, you're fine. I was just going to say, did everyone see Jerica? She said that she didn't have Wi-Fi. Okay, so she's at McDonald's and can't talk. so that's why.
That's
Just
okay. If you have anything to
Leonard.
type it, but whatever. I guess I'll say something. Something that caught my attention was in chapter 6 again, in the reading, and it says making meaning of crisis experiences, and then there's 3 things it talks about: clarifying ambiguity, helping families live with uncertainty, and seizing opportunities in the midst of crisis. And so I was thinking, like, overall, what we can learn from that in these times of stress and crisis is that sometimes, like, I don't know, I guess I'm the type of person where, like, I want to, like, figure out the problem and then solve it, and then, like, I can move on. But sometimes during times of crisis, like, there just isn't an option to move on right away. Like, you just kind of have to, like, go through it. It may be taking a while, but you just kind of have to say, okay, I don't have control over it. There's nothing I can do. So when it talks about, like seizing opportunities in the midst of crisis and living with uncertainty, I think it's really helpful, like, with this family and counseling, like, they can get through all these things, but sometimes they can't get through it, like, within a session or right away. And I mean, even with the video that we watched, I feel like this family, with Zach, the kid who was diagnosed with the cancer, like, they had to live with a lot of uncertainty, and they had to seize opportunities in the midst of crisis. And so I think we can also learn that, like, we can look for the good and try to look for the positive things even during a midst of crisis.
Indeed.
I do remember how he pointed out some of the strengths that their son had, how everybody cared so much about him that he got them all to this therapy session and his potential instead of making him feel it was all just negative.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Is someone else going to talk? Okay, I'll just go. So on page 15 of the reading, it talks about reframing and relabeling, and it says, through such techniques as reframing and relabeling, a problem situation can be redefined in order to cast it in a new light and to shift a family's rigid view or response. And that kind of reminded me of just after the, I forget his name, the therapist got everyone to kind of express how they felt, and it came out that Jimmy had felt hurt and not loved. I felt like, yeah, once he was able to get everyone to express their feelings and just why it had resulted in the way it had, that they were able to cast a new light on the situation. And like the mother at the end said that she was excited because there was a lot more things that had come about in that therapy session because they were able to communicate and find out just how everyone really was feeling and just their underlying issues. So I felt like it was kind of a reframing as far as, like I just said, casting it in a new light and being able to really understand why their son acts the way he does. And even Jimmy was able to understand why his parents and his sister were acting the way they did. And it was all because they cared for him and they were worried about him. So that was another thing that I noticed in the reading comparable to the session that we watched.
Right.
So there's another quote from Welsh, chapter 6, page 34. It says, resilience-based services foster family empowerment as they bring forth shared hope, develop new and renewed areas of competence, and build mutual support. From this perspective, it is not enough to solve a presenting problem in fostering resilience. It is not enough to solve a presenting problem. In fostering resilience, we enable families to meet new challenges more effectively. Every intervention is thus also a preventive measure. So I see that a lot as I read through the transcript of the video. Um, the therapist encourages family members by pointing out strengths and by involving a lot of humor. So making them feel a little comfortable in sharing these deep feelings that they have. And he this kind of brings family empowerment as each family feels that they are understood and that what they're feeling is being broadcasted. Like they're basically telling the therapist how they feel. The therapist is using assessment questions to dig a little deeper and bring about more clarity. And as they're doing this, the family member who was expressing themselves realizes that now the therapist has clearly stated exactly how they're feeling and thinking, and that gives like a sense of empowerment. And as they understand each other, as Jimmy understands why his sister tattles on him, as Jimmy understands why his mother reacts the way he does when he's out, and as his mother and his whole family understand why Jimmy leaves, he doesn't feel cared about, and so he doesn't feel like he belongs in his family. There's a renewed area of competence because they understand that they understand the behaviors of one another, and so basically, they understand the problem, but they're also able to foster resilience because they make the first steps on the collaborative teamwork. They make, and we discussed this before, but they make the first steps in helping their bonds. The brother and the sister are going to spend time together. They're going to go get ice cream. Jimmy and his father, they're going to spend time together as his father drives him to the skate park so that they could practice skateboarding and also just talk, because they used to do that. They used to talk in the car, and that hasn't really happened. The husband and the wife, they're going to be more of a team and build that relationship by going on a date. So I like pretty much all the things that happen in the video, like summarized with that one quote.
So I don't know if this is part of like the questions, but when you guys were talking, it just made me think, like, have you guys ever been in a situation where you had to kind of like utilize that hope?
In terms of solving problems, I think I needed a sense of empowerment from Heavenly Father just through prayer, because it's sometimes, like in situations I've faced, it's not been something where I've been openly able to talk about that person, talk to them, not about the person, but talk to the person about the situation. So like talking about the situation and about the person and things to Heavenly Father, it's almost felt like, Heavenly Father's giving a sense of empowerment and a sense of hope. So that quote kind of applies in terms of the spiritual sense, like turning to Heavenly Father to gain that sense of empowerment and that hope, and then to know how to continue and foster relationships again and build relationships and whatnot. But I guess that can be seen as more of an individual thing and collaborative with like a spiritual matter, but that also ties in with the reading. So.
Yeah.
I kind of have another thing, but I guess it's kind of towards the conclusion of it, but I guess we have about 15 minutes left. On page 21, it says that people coming for help are often struck in a vision of their lives that is narrow and joyless, filled with adversity, suffering, and fear. Approaching clients about their hopes and dreams encourages them to imagine a more satisfying future and seek to achieve it. And what struck me about the therapy session was how the therapist didn't necessarily say, okay, you need to do this, this, and this, but he kind of tried to get it out of them as to what was the next step for their family, especially because every family situation is different, and so he wanted to make it unique to their situation and what they could see as the next step in kind of overcoming their crisis. And I really like just I mean, he did bring up points for them to do, like having the couple go on a date and having the father and son ride together in the car. But to me, he was still trying to get them to think of ways, and it wasn't necessarily he just flat out said, this is what you guys need to do. And like the mother said, that she was excited for what came up with what was discussed in the therapy session. And at the end, he also asked each one of them what they learned from it, or what they valued after going to that therapy session, and how they viewed it. And so it kind of, to me, I felt like it gave that family more hope. He gave them, for one, homework assignments to do for the week, and then he also made sure that they were going to come back and follow up with them. So he kind of gave them that accountability to make sure that they would do that. And then, I think just with what came out through their feelings and how they felt, I think it gave this family more hope for the future and how to move forward. They no longer had that sense of fear that they had been for a while, just being stuck in their situation. But I really do think that the therapy session did help them probably more than they were expecting, and that just reading that kind of hit that point for me, just having a more satisfying future and seeking to achieve it. I think he did a really good job about giving them homework and then having them have accountability to come back to him a week later. And sorry, that's kind of the conclusion of my thoughts. I didn't mean to end it, but anyway.
I think that's great. And like going along with that, like when you go to a counselor, like they're not always going to be there with you, and so it's good, like you said, like they had to come up with their own ideas and their own thoughts and conclusions, because they only go to the counselor once a week, or however many times they go. I mean, it's different for every family, but like they need to come up with ways that it's going to be helpful for them to get along and to better their own relationships, because they know what their everyday life and activities and tasks are like.
Mm-hmm.
Going along with what Summer said, the questions and helping the family know of ways to help themselves, basically, through the questions that he asked. On page 23 and 24 of chapter 6, it frames some of the questions that that therapists can ask to clients who have lost hope to pessimism. And some of the things it says, conversations can explore what might be learned and applied to the present dilemma, as well as what they imagine could help them regain hope. And what this reminds me of is the sister specifically. Jimmy's sister feels as though she no longer knows her brother, that her brother has changed, and that she's worried that he might be involved in things that are not good. And she fears that he'll get in trouble. And so she kind of gains his attention and also shows that she cares about him by telling her parents about the situation, and in turn, he gets in trouble. But as the therapist talks to the sister to understand how she's feeling, he kind of poses questions to her that about ways that she can feel that she can regain hope, and the fact that she has a brother again. And to gain that hope, he helps her understand that he isn't doing drugs, he isn't doing the things that she fears, and that he does love her and does want to spend time with her. He does this, as we see in the video, or read in the video transcription, as in my case, he does this by directly asking Jimmy if he's involved with those kinds of things, and saying, and also repeating his question, and Jimmy confirms that he isn't. And he also, just the whole ice cream thing where the sister and the brother are going to be able to spend time together again. And then going off of another note, something that I noticed from the video transcription is that is the father's, it's on page 23 of the video transcription, and this is something interesting because it's another, the mother seems a little bit more worried about Jimmy's situation than the father is. The father says he's a kid, he's going to be a kid, but the mother, worries in a different way than the father worries about, his wife, worrying so much, so he ends up being angry at Jimmy as well. But the father says that when the father talks about worry, he says the therapist poses this question to the father, and when in regards to how the father was raised. He says, "How did you guys do this in your family when you were a kid? Did your parents ever worry about you in this way?" And the father says, "Not really. But my parents, they're not a really part of their kids. They're not really. They weren't. They're not really a part of their kids' lives either." So that just shows like family tendencies from the past, and the father the father kind of admits to how he is. He's a bit, less worried and whatnot because he was grown up in a situation he grew up in a situation where his parents weren't as worried. I want to point that out. And then the therapist, like an example of how the therapist poses questions is page 21 of the video transcripts, when he says, how can we talk and plan? How can we talk and plan and deal with our worries? And an example of the way he points out strengths is, again, on page 21, when he tells Jimmy he's pointing out a strength, and he's saying, "It's obvious that you're a pretty powerful guy there." And an example, like a concrete example, because I'm sure we will need to add this to our writing, but a concrete example of how he engages the family to have a plan of action, to know how to adapt to a situation, and have a new awareness for the family's thoughts and feelings is on page 21 and 20 and 21. So it says, "I'm wondering," and then this is the therapist, he's saying, "I'm wondering if a part of what we could do here is if we can find some ways of coming up with plans and not just adjusting plans. What I mean is that we can come up with a method or a way for you guys to be confident so that you are not arguing and yelling and acting kind of out of character. And then you can also help to make adjustments when they need to be in the future. I wonder if that might be of a big help." And so the therapist is posing these questions, and that's going to help the mother improve her reactions, because the mother admits that she has been reacting to Jimmy and being a lot more angry than she should. I guess that's the wrong way of saying it, but she's saying basically that she's acting out, and she is very infuriated, very furious, and very angry, and that she's showing that anger, and everyone acknowledges that she is taking it a lot more out of hand than it needs to be, because it can be handled a little better. So that's a way that the therapist is helping.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I think that's a good point. And I also was reading, earlier what Jerica said, and I liked what Jerica said in talking about adopting a positive attitude as well. Where is it? It's up here, but she talked about adopting a positive attitude, and so going along with all of your comments talking about that hope and talking about Jimmy and what happened in the counseling session, I think sometimes we have to adopt a positive attitude even during these times of trials and during these family relationships and relationships we have with others. Sometimes it just doesn't come easy. So I don't know if I'm making sense, but sometimes we just have to adopt an attitude and just kind of choose to be positive.
So we talked about this, and I just wanted to bring out a concrete example on page 23 about what they hope to gain through counseling. I think Summer mentioned it, about how the family therapist poses this question after hearing about the family's complaints and as the session was starting. And then this was on page 23. It says, "It's important to understand the stress, pain, and frustrations underlying such criticisms, and to help family members refocus from complaints, what's wrong, to positive aims. What can be done to make things better? This was done throughout the video. And then what can we do to improve an unbearable situation? How would a marriage need to change for the better for a spouse on the edge of divorce to reconsider? This couple's not on the edge of divorce, but how could a marriage change for the better is something that we saw as they need to spend more time together to have a stronger bond. What would a successful, satisfying family look like? And then this is the main part. It says, after hearing family members' complaints in an assessment interview, it's important to ask what they hope to gain through counseling. So that's exactly like word for word, like what we said in our thoughts, what someone expressed, that this is exactly what the counselor did, and then this is what the therapist did. And then in terms of fostering that hopeful outlook, the specific term that we can use is future-oriented focus. That's a tool for therapy, that future-oriented focus, and then the perspective, and there was the other one. I shared this before, if I can find it again. There was another specific term of like the kind of therapist, that initial intake or something like that, type of therapy approach that the therapist was taking. But anyway, so it's something like that. Okay, so that's that. So do you guys want me to sorry, I'm gonna pause right now if anyone else has any other comments, and then we'll just type if we're all good to go, and then I'll go ahead and read what I have so far with the group summary notes and whatnot.
I need to stop the meeting, so are you guys ready for me to stop it first, or does anybody else have anything to say? What was that?
I think it's been a meeting.
We're finished.
It's 7:45 and we started 7:03. I mean, technically we started recording at 7:03, but we started earlier, and I know that people lose points if they don't do about an hour thing. And I think we're supposed to still record the, after the discussion, we actually talk about what we're going to be writing, and I share the notes that I took during the course of our meeting. So I think that we're supposed to still record that, because we're supposed to turn that in. That's still part of our group. And if we turn it in now, it's just 45. It's the discussion, but it's not the final part.
Right. I was under the impression that we only record the 45 minutes, and the other part is kind of debriefing that we do separate, but we can keep recording. I can look up where I saw that. But you can keep talking then, because I was under a different impression. But
sorry, I'll look for it too. I'm not exactly sure. It just says, in the last 15 minutes of the meeting, the person who's in charge of composing the summary will share with the group to make sure that all teammates agree with the work. The final summary should be in a Word document. And it says, and then it says,
do you guys
the YouTube link in the
Google Doc? So do you guys just want to do a Google Doc, and then, I don't know, Christine, did you want to turn it in, since you kind of were texting us and kind of heading it up? I mean, I can turn it in too. I just know that you were kind of...
Yeah, I want to turn it in. So, what I suggested was that we have a cutoff date for everyone to, add the personal quotes that they chose from the reading and whatnot, and see what they feel that they can add to it. So I was suggesting Friday at 5 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, 4 p.m. Pacific Time. That would be the cutoff time. So, if we all go back and check to see what the document looks like at that time, that's the document that I'll be submitting. And if it's and no more changes or anything will go, and I can send out a final text or something like that, and then I could just submit it that evening, if that works.
And I can do the Google Docs, because me and Christine talked about it before. Sorry we didn't say it to everyone else, but in our last meeting we were in the same group, and I said I would do the Google Docs again, which, since I have everyone's email, if that works. I don't mean to...
I don't know. I don't know how to do a Google Doc.
Yeah,
but
I'll do
I can
it.
just copy paste what I wrote to Google Docs.
Sounds good. Yeah, we all can. And then I'll also paste the link there, so Christine, because if you're submitting the document, I think you also submit the link to this recording.
Yeah.
I'll also post it in that Google Doc, so and anyone can view it as well. But,
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely.
Great. That'll be helpful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, so I guess since we're going to do the Google Docs, and we'll get that right now, that there's no need to read off the briefing. I mean, I don't know. Should I? Should I not? I'm not sure. Do you guys want me to, or do you guys want to leave? I can do it if
And wait, read off what?
just like what I was going to include in the Google documents and like a briefing of our meeting.
Yeah,
So just to like summarize.
it will be fine. What do you guys think?
What was that, Roxy?
I was just saying, I think if we just all kind of add to it, like, and then for sure before Friday by 5 p.m. for the cutoff, like, I think we'll be fine as long as we all just, like, come up with some stuff to say. And
Right.
I think we had a meaningful discussion. I think we can all just, like, add some stuff and we'll be good.
I
Okay.
agree.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, what would be added was just the points from page 3 of the reading about belief systems, making meaning of adversary, positive outlook, transcendence and spirituality, flexibility and connectedness. There was several bullet points under this belief systems and organizational patterns and communication processes that we discussed, and then we all shared a few quotes, and we went through the perspective, changing perspective to hope and collaborative teamwork and clear communication and fostering relationships for resiliency. And so those are just the main things that we discussed, and we all shared some quotes and insights, and so the assessment and whatnot. So that's just basically what we summarized.
Cool, thank you. And I just sent you guys all an invite. If anyone doesn't know what Google Docs is, we can all type simultaneously. And you can see when people are online, and you can see when they're typing, so you don't need to change your font color or anything. It saves automatically as you type. So it's pretty cool to use. So if you have any questions, let me know. But I just sent everyone an invite to the Google Docs.
Okay, great. So we can work on the Google Docs now, and we've actually been meeting a little more than an hour. We just started recording at 7:03, but we were, having a discussion before as well. So I think we fulfilled the requirements, and it's not like requirements that have to be to the T. It's like the spirit of the assignment, but we've done both, so it all works. So it's nice meeting with you guys, and see you on Google Docs. Yeah.
All right,
So
thanks.
5 p.m. Mountain Time.
Sounds good. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.